It is the 24th of December, and this day in Baptist history, our reading is a faithful missionary who overcame much adversity. Our verse of Scripture comes from Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 1. I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that ye walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called. It is a wonderful thing to witness the sovereign hand of God as He directs in the affairs of men. This is especially true as we examine the lives of the children of God. A study of two missionary families, the Deans and the Goddards, provide a case in point. The firstborn in the family of Josiah and Eliza Goddard was a son, Joseph Ripley Goddard. He was born in Singapore on September 7, 1840, just a month before the Goddards arrived in Bangkok. Josiah Ripley was the only son in a family that would number 4 children, and he received his early schooling and spiritual guidance from his parents. Josiah and Eliza seemed to realize how much the future of the missionary outreach might be wrapped up in the life of this one lad. When Josiah Ripley was 13 years old, he was sent by his parents on board a ship to America, where he was to meet Maria Main Brown, a missionary widow whom the family had known in Bangkok. However, before the ship arrived in New York City, Mrs. Brown had become the third wife of Dr. William Dean, and they had moved away from the great metropolis. Furthermore, the Worcester College, where young Josiah was to train, had closed its doors, and the young traveler was adrift on his own. The lad had never been out of the Orient, but undaunted he set out to find relatives in Bennington, Vermont, and soon he was settled in school. Tragically, it was not long before the youth received word of the death of his father in Ningpo, China. His mother and 3 sisters arrived shortly from the Orient. Sorrow and disappointment continued in Josiah Ripley's life. For 3 years later, his mother died. Now at the tender age of 17, he, along with one of his sisters, Eliza, had to care for himself. One can only imagine how the two must have matured, for over a long period of time they existed on cornmeal mush and milk. Josiah persisted, however, and graduated from his father's alma mater, Brown University. Following the completion of his college training, Josiah married Emma Tripp. The Civil War broke out in America, and Josiah enlisted in the 11th Rhode Island Regiment of Volunteer Infantry and fought in several engagements. At the end of the war, Josiah met with another disaster, the death of his dear wife. The vision of missionary service still filled Josiah's mind, and he completed his theological training that he might be fully equipped to serve his Lord. With his training all cared for, Josiah married Eliza Cushing Barker, and they sailed on Christmas Eve, December 24, 1867, for Ningpo, China. The 131-day journey was arduous, and the couple experienced much seasickness. But Josiah's goal of serving in China was soon to be fulfilled. His ability in the Chinese language returned to him quickly, and he wrote, and I quote, "A week in China would be one of the most powerful missionary appeals that could be made to a Christian heart." End of quote. On September 30th, 1868, a baby boy was born to the couple, but Josiah's lovely bride died the following day, and the baby soon followed. The missionary now poured all of his efforts into the ministry of evangelism. After some time, Dr. William Dean and his daughter Fanny arrived for a visit from Bangkok. That visit culminated in the marriage of Josiah and Fanny. When consenting to their marriage, Dr. Dean said, "If a man even in the Garden of Eden need a wife, surely he does among the heathen." Josiah Ripley Goddard set high standards as he strove for well-trained pastoral leadership and educated laity in the local churches. Though he founded and supported a boarding school for boys in the mission, he believed that the local church must be the heart of the work. He envisioned schools and missionary organizations only as a means of strengthening the churches. For more than 30 years, Josiah and Fanny had no effective assistance from other missionary colleagues. However, as Fanny served faithfully by the side of her husband, God blessed their efforts. Ningpo had more churches and a larger constituency than the other fields of spiritual labor in China. Josiah had arranged for educating nationals for the work of the ministry. The Chekiang, Chekiang, Baptist Association was begun, and the Home Mission Society was organized. The crowning effort of Josiah, however, was the completion of the work of his father in translating the Old Testament into the dialect of the area. When trials come, we would do well to consider the many tribulations of Josiah Ripley Goddard, and to determine that by divine grace and power we will follow God's will regardless of the cost. To God be the glory.